Okay, today is Unit 2, Lesson 7, Factoring Expressions. I'm going to start doing something a little bit different. I want you guys to start doing it too. We're going to start dating and naming a few things. So the date today is 10/14/19, October 14th, 2019. And we're going to put up here, topic, factoring expressions. And go ahead and put your name in the class, put your block number. So if you're in second, third period, then that's block 1. Third, fourth is block 2. Fifth, sixth is block 3. 6, 7 is block 4. So go ahead and put your block number. Factoring expressions is the opposite of distributing. So we were distributing last time and multiplying a number outside the parentheses by everything inside the parentheses. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to undo that by dividing instead. So in that very first example in the box here, you can see we started out with 3x plus 6. And that was factored out because they looked at what number you can divide 3 and 6 by. What's the largest number that goes into both of those that they can be divided by? And it's got to be one number. So, well, they found that 3 is the largest number that goes into 3 and 6. So they were able to pull the 3 out, and that left them with x plus 2 on the inside. Now, to tell if you did it right, you reverse the whole operation and do distribution again. So 3 times x would give me 3x. 3 times positive 2 gives me positive 6. Well, guess what? That's what I started with. So that tells me I did it right. Okay? So that's the whole idea, is pulling a number out that both numbers in both terms in the expression can be divided by. So first you got to do the steps to factor. First, find the greatest common factor of each term. In our previous example, it was 3. Divide each time by the greatest common factor and leave the remaining factors in parentheses. So that was what they did. They divided by 3 on both of the terms, and they were left with x plus 2. Check your work by distributing, and that's what we did here. We distributed and double-checked it. So let's go through a few of these. I'm going to do the evens, and I'm going to have you do the odds. So on number 2, I look at 21x minus 30, and that is a positive 21x. If you want, you can put the plus sign there to remind yourself. You don't have to. But then I look at it, what number goes into 21 and 30 evenly? What can I divide them both by? What's the biggest number I can divide both of them by? Well, if I look at 21, there's only a few numbers I know that go into 21. There's 1, 21, so 1 times 21 is 21. There's 3 times 7. So there's the 4 numbers that 21 can be divided by. Okay, and I rarely, if ever, am going to want to divide by a 1 or multiply by a 1, because that really it doesn't do anything. So I've got 21, 3, and 7. Well, let's look at 30. So that's for 21. Let's look at 30. What numbers go into 30? Well, there's 1 and 30. Okay, and there's 2 and 15. So 2 times 15. And then there's 3 and 10. And I think there's 5 and 6. Well, again, I don't care about 1, but what other number is in there that you see showing up both times? Oh, I see it. 3. 3 is the only number that pops up both times. So 3 is the number I can divide. That's the greatest number that I can divide both of those numbers by. So I pull the 3 out, or actually I divide by 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3. 21 divided by 3 gives me 7x. Negative 30 divided by 3 gives me negative 10. I leave that in there, and I put the number that I divided by out front. Okay? So now I want to check it. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to check it. 3 times 7, that's 21x. 3 times negative 10, that's negative 30. Cool. That was exactly what we started out with over here. So this is my correct answer. Okay? So let's do that again. Let's look at number 4. I've got a 2 and a negative 24 in here. I got 2n minus 24. This one's pretty simple because the only numbers that go into 2 are 1 and 2. 1 times 2, right? And we're always looking for multiplication, so that's how we factor things. So we're always looking at multiplication. What numbers do we multiply to get these bigger numbers? So obviously it's 2. Hopefully I don't have to, write all these out. So I'm going to divide by 2. Divide by 2 there, divide by 2 there. And notice I'm underlining that sign there also because I need to divide negative 24 by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1n. I don't really need to write the 1. Negative 24 divided by 2 is negative 12. I put that in parentheses, and then I put the number I divided by out front. So now I'm going to check it. Okay, I'm going to distribute. Check my answer. 2 times n, that gives me 2n. 2 times negative 12, that's negative 24. And that was what we started with. So that is a good answer. Okay, it works. And usually what you're trying to do is get this by itself, but that's not always possible because as you see up here, we had a 7 with the x. But a lot of times that's what our goal is, and you'll find that out later on when you're doing other kinds of math, that's usually what the main goal is. But so let's look at number 6. I'm going to do this again. So I have 4. What numbers make 4? Well, 1 times 4 and 2 times 2, right? That's all the numbers I can multiply to get 4. Let's look at 30. Well, 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, to move some stuff over, and 5 times 6. Well, this one's pretty simple. We don't care about 1. We rarely do when factoring. 4, I don't see a 4 in there, but we do have 2, so oops. So we do have 2. 2 works. Okay, that's the biggest number that goes, that's the greatest common factor is what they call it, the largest number that I can divide those by and get a whole number out of the answer. So let's divide by 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2x. Negative 30 divided by 2 is negative 15. Those go in parentheses, and I put the 2 out front. Now I'm going to check it. Got to distribute. 2 times 2, that gives me 4x. 2 times negative 15, that's a positive times a negative, gives me a negative 30. Is that what we started with? Yeah, cool. We started with that, so this is a good answer. Let's look at number 8. 16x plus 40. So 16, what numbers make 16? 1 times 16, that's one of them. Let me fix that 6, I don't like it. 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4. I think that's the only ones I can think of that go into 16. Let's look at 40. We've got 1 times 40, so we've got a match, but we don't care about 1. 1 doesn't help us any. 2 times 20. 4 times 10, and 5 times 8. So what is the biggest number? Because I see a couple of numbers. I see a 4 in both of them. I see 8 in both of them. So I'm looking for the greatest common factor, the largest number that goes into 16 and 40 evenly, that I can divide them by. Well, 8 is the biggest number because it's bigger than 4, right? So I can do an 8. So let's divide this by 8, divide this by 8. So 16 divided by 8 gives me a 2x. 40 divided by 8 gives me a positive 5. Oops, a little too early. I got to check my answer first. I got to put this in parentheses, put the 8 out front, and then check it. Is this a good answer? 8 times 2, well, that gives me 16x. 8 times 5 gives me a positive 40. So good. This works. Once I checked it, it came out with the exact same answer as up here. Okay. Let's take a look at this one. 10's an odd one. 10 and 12 are both kind of odd, but don't just stop and go, I can't do it. It's not as hard as you think. We're just looking at numbers that go into the numbers that I already have. What can I divide 8 and 36 by? Well, let's look at 8. That's 1 times 8, 2 times 4. That's it. That's all there is. Let's look at 36. There's 1 times 36. There's 2 times 18. There's 3 times 12. There's 4 times 9. And 5 doesn't go in. Let's look, 6 times 6. So there's all the numbers we have, I think. There's no 7. Does 8 go in? 8 doesn't go in. 9 doesn't. 9 should go in, yeah. 4 times, oh, we already did that one. 4 times 9. We already did that one. So we don't care about ones, remember. What's the biggest number you see in those 2 rows that match? I see a 2 and I see a 4 that match. Okay, well, I want the biggest number, 4. 4 is bigger than 2, so I'm going to divide both of these by 4. So I'm dividing this positive, again, this is a positive 8 and a positive 4. 8 divided by 4 leaves me with a 2m. Divide this by a positive 4, negative divided by positive is always a negative. 36 divided by 4, we get 9, right? So we put that in parentheses. Oops, I left something out. It's a 9n, right? 9n, that n's still there. It doesn't go away. And then I put the 4 out front. Now I got to check it. 4 times 2m minus 9n. 4 times 2, that gives me 8m. Positive 4 times negative 9 gives me a negative 36n. Do I got what I started with? Yep. So this is a good answer. So even if you have different variables, you can still do this. Okay? Let's look at number 12. This one, kind of a trick question. Let's look at 3 and 40. What goes into 3? Well, 3, I can only get 3 by multiplying 1 and 3, right? 40, oops, I got 1 times 40, 2 times 20, 4 times 10, 5 times 8, and I think that's all of them. I mean, everything else you could reverse them, 8 times 5, 10 times 4, 20 times 2. Well, let's look. I only see a 1. 1 is the only thing, and dividing by 1 won't change anything. So this one, that can't be factored. It can't be factored. 1 doesn't do anything for me, because if I divide them by 1, let's just go ahead and do it. Divide by 1, divide by 1. 3v divided by 1 is 3v. 40 divided by 1 is 40x. Put that in parentheses, put a 1 out front. Does that really do anything for me? No, I haven't really factored anything, because anytime you multiply or divide by 1, it doesn't change your answer. So they call this, it's already prime. It's already factored. I don't need to do the work. It's already done. I can't, there's no numbers that go into 3 and 40 that I can pull out and factor. Okay? So let me look on the back real quick. So let's look at number 13. Actually, I want you to do 13. Check them out and see if you can explain why one is correct over the other one. Okay, I want you to do that one on your own. And that one you're going to probably have to show me before you can do Prodigy today. Do 13 and explain why one person might be right and the other person is incorrect. Let's look at a few of these ones down here, because I still want you to do 15, 17, 19. You're going to do all the odds today. But let's look at 14. We're going to simplify it, then factor it. Well, this is a positive. Let's look at 14. That's a positive 4x. Let's underline all our terms with their signs. Let's move the variables to the front. So I have positive 4x, a positive 6x, and a negative 22. The x terms I can combine. As long as they have the same variable, I can combine them. So 4x and a 6x, that gives me 10x minus 22. Then I go, okay, what numbers go into 10 and 22? Well, what's 10? We've got 1 times 10, 2 times 5. Those are the only numbers that go into 10. 22, we have 1 times 22, 2 times 11. I think that's it. I don't know of anything else that goes into 22. Well, here we are. We've got a matching number, 2. I can divide both of these by 2, and you can put the plus sign there. And that's the negative 22. So positive 10 divided by a positive 2, and it doesn't matter if you put the signs there. It's a positive 2. Positive 10 divided by a positive 2, that gives me a 5x. Negative 22 divided by positive 2, that gives me a negative 11. I put that in parentheses, put the number I just divided by out front. Then I'm going to check it. 2 times 5, that's 10x. 2 times negative 11 is negative 22. Well, that is what we started with there. So this is a good answer. Okay. Let's look at one more here. Let's skip to 18, because hopefully you can do 16. Let's look at 18. This one might be a little confusing, but let's rewrite it, and let's write or put our same type of variables together. And let's put a positive out there. So we have a positive 19x. Underline our terms with the sign in front of it. Okay, let's move our x terms. Let's go alphabetically. X comes before y, so let's move all of our x terms to the front. The 19x can stay there. The negative 4x gets moved. Plus 2y plus 3y. Okay, so now let's underline them again, and let's combine the terms that have the same letter. So 19 minus 4, that gives me 15x. 2 plus 3, that gives me 5y. The variables go along with the numbers, okay? They don't just disappear. So now I've got 15 and 5. Well, hopefully you're starting to see that there's only a certain number of numbers that go into 15 and 5. And at least for 5, I know it's only 1 and 5. I don't care about the 1, but 5 goes into both of those. So let's divide by 5. Divide by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3x. 5 divided by 5 is 1y. I don't have to write the 1. You can. It's not wrong. If you want to put the 1 in there, go ahead. But with math, like I said, we try to make things as simple and do as little writing as possible. So we don't write the 1, because we can see there's a y there. We don't need to do 1 times y, because there's a y there. So we put that in parentheses and put the number we divided by out front. Then we check it. If you want, you can leave the 1 out front. 5 times 3, 15x. 5 times 1 is 5y. Is that what we started with up here? Yep, 15x plus 5y, so this is a good answer. Okay? So you are responsible for all the odds. Please do all those. And when you are done with the odds there, then you can go on to the homework 7. Grab that, do the odds. That will not be due today. It will probably be due tomorrow. So if you have any questions, please